You call that heap a truck?
It's all we need.
Look at this mess. Wait, what's this?
It's not just a truck.
Unbelievable.
The old truck coughed twice, died under the chandelier-lit entrance, and every camera turned. Sebastian Voss looked down from the marble steps, smiled like he'd been handed a joke, and said into the microphone, "Who let the scrapyard park in front of my gala?" Then Eli Parker heard his daughter whisper from the passenger seat, "Dad, please don't let them laugh at us." And if stories about ordinary people pushed to the edge mean something to you, subscribe, like the video, and stay with me to the end. Because what happened in the back of that truck changed every life standing there that night. Rain slid down the windshield in silver lines. Eli kept both hands on the steering wheel, even though the engine was dead. He didn't look at the crowd first. He looked at 9-year-old Lucy in her church dress, trying to pull her sleeves over her hands the way she always did when she was scared. He had promised her tonight would be quick. He had promised they'd be in and out. He had promised nobody would notice them. All 3 promises were already broken. The Voss Foundation Winter Gala was the kind of event where rich people parked cars worth more than most houses, stepped over red carpets, and told each other they cared about the city. Eli had only come because the foundation had bought the community center where his daughter's after-school program met. And tonight, Sebastian Voss was announcing what would happen to the building next. If Voss tore it down, Lucy would lose the only place she still smiled after her mother died. So Eli came in the only thing he had left that still felt like family. A faded blue truck with rust along the wheel wells, a cracked bench seat, and a heater that only worked when you kicked the dashboard. It had belonged to Eli's father first, then to Eli. Then, in a way, to Lucy too. A valet in white gloves walked over, staring like the truck might stain him. "Sir, you can't leave this here." Before Eli could answer, Sebastian Voss lifted his glass and spoke louder, making sure the people on the steps and the reporters at the bottom caught every word. "No, let him stay. This is inspiring. Proof that in this city, even bad decisions can still find parking." Laughter scattered through the crowd. Not everyone laughed, but enough did. Eli felt Lucy shrink beside him. He opened the door slowly and stepped out into the cold. He wasn't tall. He wasn't polished. His black suit had been tailored by necessity, which meant it was borrowed from his brother-in-law and still a little too broad in the shoulders. His shoes were clean, but old. His jaw was tight from not eating since noon. "I'm not here for your party," Eli said. Sebastian gave him that expensive kind of smile people practiced in mirrors. "Then you're in luck. Neither is your truck." A few more people laughed. One camera zoomed in. Eli should have turned around. He should have put Lucy back in the truck, called it a mistake, and driven home. But Lucy had spent the whole week drawing pictures of the community center gym so he could show the important man why kids need it. So Eli stayed. "I'm here to ask what happens to the Harbor House building," he said. "You bought it. Families use it. Kids use it. My daughter uses it." Sebastian adjusted his cufflinks as if Eli were background noise. "Harbor House is being redeveloped into something more valuable." Lucy opened her door and climbed out before Eli could stop her. "More valuable than kids?" The entire staircase went quiet. Sebastian's smile faded for half a second, only half. He crouched just enough to pretend kindness for the cameras. "And you are?" "Lucy." "Well, Lucy, the world changes. Old things make room for better things." Lucy looked at the truck, then back at him. "Is that why you laughed at my dad?" You could feel the air change, not softer, sharper. Sebastian rose to his full height and shrugged. I laughed at bad timing. Eli put a hand on Lucy's shoulder. We're leaving. But then one of the gala staff, flustered and eager to impress the wrong man, said, "Sir, the vehicle is leaking. We need it removed immediately." Eli frowned. Leaking? He stepped around the truck, crouched near the back tire, and touched the pavement. Not oil. Water. Cold, clear water. From a crack in the bed near the wheel well. He stared at it. That crack hadn't been there yesterday. "Tow it," Sebastian said casually. "I'll even pay the scrap fee." Lucy grabbed Eli's sleeve. "Dad, no." The tow driver backed in. Chains rattled. Metal clanked. And that should have been the end of the humiliation. Just another rich man making a poor one smaller in public. Except when the tow driver jerked the truck hard, something heavy slammed inside the truck bed wall. Not loose cargo. Not a tool. Something hidden. Eli froze. The driver paused too. "You got something in there?" "No," Eli said automatically. Then he caught himself. Maybe. His father had owned this truck for 20 years before Eli ever touched the keys. After his father died, Eli kept it running, but barely. He'd replaced belts, patched hoses, changed tires in grocery store parking lots, slept in it twice after Anna's funeral when the house felt too empty to breathe in. He knew every dent, every rattle. But that sound? That sound was new. The tow driver tugged again. The cracked metal in the bedwall split wider, and a rusted panel popped loose with a screech. A small steel box slid halfway out from inside the truck bed. The gala guests leaned forward. Sebastian frowned. Eli stared like he was looking at a ghost, because on the lid of the box, almost eaten away by time, were 3 stamped letters. T.P. His father's initials. Thomas Parker. Lucy whispered, "Grandpa put something in there?" Eli hadn't heard his father's name out loud in months. It hit him like a hand to the chest. A reporter stepped closer. Cameras lifted. Even people on the stairs started walking down now. Sebastian's voice lost some of its shine. "Open the road. Get this man out of here." But now nobody cared about the red carpet. They cared about the box. Eli reached for it. One of Sebastian's security men moved first. "Sir, step back." Eli jerked the box toward himself. "Don't touch it!" The guard grabbed his arm. Lucy cried out, and for one ugly second, under all those lights, it looked like a Billionaire's security team was about to wrestle a steel box away from a widower and his little girl. People began filming on their phones. Sebastian saw it too late. "Let him have it," he snapped. The guard released Eli. Eli's fingers trembled as he set the box on the truck bed. The latch had rusted shut. He pulled at it once. Nothing. Twice. Nothing. The tow driver handed him a screwdriver without saying a word. Eli wedged it under the latch and pushed. The metal snapped. Inside was a stack of oil-stained envelopes tied with electrical wire. A small cassette recorder wrapped in a mechanic's rag. A tarnished key. And beneath all of it, a thick folder with one name typed across the top. Voss Automotive. Prototype Ownership. The silence around them became absolute. Sebastian's face changed first. Not much. Just enough. Enough for Eli to see fear. And that scared him more than the box. He pulled out the first envelope. On the front, in his father's handwriting, were 5 words. "If they ever come back." Eli's mouth went dry. Dad, Lucy whispered. What is it? He opened the envelope with shaking hands. Inside were patent sketches, engine schematics, signatures, dates, his father's name, and another signature underneath it. Sebastian Voss. Not the billionaire's father. Sebastian himself. Eli looked up slowly. Sebastian's public smile was gone now. Those documents are stolen property. Eli laughed once, hollow and stunned. From my dead father's truck? Sebastian stepped down from the stairs. Your father was a mechanic. A talented one, I'm sure. But he didn't own what you think he owned. Eli turned to the next page. A contract. Original founder equity split. Thomas Parker, 50%. Sebastian Voss, 50%. Voss Automotive wasn't supposed to belong to one man. It was built by two. And one of them died broke in a rented house with a leaking roof and a son who learned early not to want too much. People around them started murmuring. Reporters moved closer. What is that? Can we get a shot of those pages? Mr. Voss, did you co-found the company with a mechanic? Sebastian's jaw flexed. This is a fabrication. Then Eli found the note paper-clipped to the inside cover. Short. Greasy fingerprints across one corner. Written by his father. If anything happens to me, Sebastian did not keep his word. The engine was ours. He wants all of it. Don't trust any settlement. Don't trust any fire report. Eli stopped breathing. Fire report. He looked at Sebastian, and suddenly he wasn't seeing a billionaire on marble steps. He was seeing the week his father died. The garage fire. The officials who called it an accident. The sealed casket. His mother collapsing in the kitchen because there was no money left after the hospital bills. Sebastian saw recognition hit him and said quickly, "A desperate man wrote desperate lies." Lucy looked up at her father. Grandpa didn't lie. And Eli wanted to say, of course he didn't. But truth was more painful than that. He didn't know. Not yet. A woman's voice cut through the crowd. I know that recorder. Everyone turned. An older woman in a charcoal coat stood near the fountain, rain darkening her silver hair. Eli recognized her a second before her name came back to him. Mara Bell. His father's old bookkeeper. He hadn't seen her in 15 years. She walked toward the truck without looking at Sebastian once. Thomas used that recorder when meetings got tense, she said. Said rich men remembered things differently when paper was involved. Sebastian's eyes flashed. Remove her. But nobody moved. Not now. Mara held out her hand to Eli. Play it. The cassette clicked into place with a sound so tiny it didn't seem capable of changing anything. And then Thomas Parker's voice came through the speaker. Older, rough, alive. If you're hearing this, it means I ran out of time. Sebastian is trying to force me out. He changed the lawyers, changed the numbers, and told me nobody would believe a mechanic over a Voss. A murmur rolled through the crowd. Sebastian stepped forward. This proves nothing. The tape crackled. Then came a second voice, Sebastian's. You built the engine, Tom. Congratulations. But I built the name people trust. Don't confuse labor with legacy. The crowd gasped. Sebastian's own face seemed to lose color listening to his younger self. On the tape, Thomas said, You promised my family would be protected. Sebastian answered, I promised you a deal. Sign it, or the company moves without you. Click. End of side 1.
The silence afterward was worse than the laughter had been. Reporters started shouting questions all at once. "Mr. Voss, is that your voice? Did you push out your co-founder? Was there a fraudulent transfer? What fire report was he referring to?" Sebastian lifted his hand, but he no longer controlled the room. "This is edited," he said. "An old mechanic's grudge dug out of junk metal means nothing." Eli stared at him. Junk metal. That truck had carried groceries when Eli had $11 to his name. It had carried Anna to chemo. It had carried Lucy home from the hospital after she was born. And now it had carried the truth longer than any person in that city had. Sebastian pointed at Eli. "Name your price." That shocked the crowd almost as much as the tape. Eli blinked. "What?" Sebastian lowered his voice, but the nearest microphones still caught it. "You came here for attention. Fine. For money? Even better. Tell me the number, hand over the box, and I'll make sure your daughter never worries again." Lucy went very still. It was the first time Eli realized she understood exactly what was happening. Not all the legal words, not the patents, but the insult, the shape of it, the message hidden inside it. Your pain has a price. Anna used to tell him there were moments when life showed you who people really were, not in their speeches, but in what they thought you would sell. Eli looked at the box, at his daughter, at the reporters, at the man who had possibly stolen a company and definitely believed he could buy silence. "How much did you offer my dad?" Eli asked. Sebastian didn't answer. "That night," Eli said, voice shaking now, "before he died, how much did you think his life was worth?" For the first time all evening, Sebastian Voss had no line ready. Security moved in again, not to help, but to create distance. The gala director tried to cut the music. Somebody called legal counsel. Somebody else called the police. Mara squeezed Eli's shoulder once and whispered, "There's more. Thomas never hid only one copy." Eli turned to her fast. "What more?" She looked at the truck. "Under the seat. He loved hiding things where he thought nobody rich would ever kneel." Sebastian heard that. And that was when the evening stopped feeling like embarrassment and started feeling like war. He nodded at his head of security. The man moved. So did Eli. He lunged for the driver's door, yanked it open, and reached under the cracked bench seat. His fingers found dust, a wrench, a dead flashlight, then the edge of an envelope taped to the frame. Security grabbed his jacket. The envelope tore in half. Papers spilled into the rain. Lucy screamed. Sebastian's polished guests stared as pages plastered themselves to wet pavement. Stock certificates, notarized letters, a photograph of two younger men beside the skeleton of an engine block. Thomas Parker and Sebastian Voss, smiling like brothers. Eli hit the ground on one knee, trying to gather the pages before the water ruined them. Lucy dropped beside him without hesitation, her small hands pressing paper flat against the stones. "Don't let them take Grandpa," she cried. That did it. Not the documents, not the tape. That sentence. Because a crowd can watch a scandal from a safe, emotional distance, but a child trying to protect the dead? That reaches somewhere deeper. Several gala guests stepped forward to help gather the papers. One woman used her shawl to shield them from the rain. A young valet held his umbrella over Lucy. Even a reporter took off his coat and spread it across the pavement so the pages wouldn't wash away. Sebastian shouted, "Nobody touches anything!" And suddenly he sounded exactly like what he'd spent 20 years pretending not to be. Desperate, ugly, afraid. Police arrived within minutes, but by then the videos were already everywhere. A billionaire mocking a single father, a hidden box, a tape, a child in the rain. Eli thought the worst part was over. It wasn't. Because 3 hours later, after statements and evidence bags and cameras shoved at his face until he thought he would choke, he and Lucy came home to find their front door open. The house had been searched, drawers dumped, closet emptied, mattress cut. Lucy stood in the hallway, frozen. "Dad?" Eli's blood ran cold. He moved through the house fast, every muscle tight, calling for no one and everyone. Nobody answered. Nothing obvious was missing. It wasn't theft. It was a message. He walked into his bedroom and saw the one thing left standing upright on the dresser. A framed photo of Anna. Cracked clean through the middle. Lucy started crying then. Not loud, just quietly, like she was trying to keep from breaking something else. Eli knelt in front of her, but his own hands were shaking so hard he could barely touch her face. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "For what?" "For bringing this to our door." Lucy wiped her nose with the back of her hand. "No," she said. "You brought Grandpa back." That nearly destroyed him. After Anna died, he had promised himself one thing. Lucy would never feel unsafe because of his pride. Now, a man with money and reach had looked at his family and decided fear was a useful tool. So at 2 a.m, sitting on the kitchen floor amid broken drawers and scattered clothes, Eli made the choice every tired father dreads most. He considered quitting. Not because Sebastian was innocent, because Lucy was not. At sunrise, there was a knock at the door. Mara again. With her was a thin man in a mechanic's jacket and an old burn scar climbing his neck. His name was Wesley Dunn. He had been at the garage the night Thomas died. "I lied in the report," Wesley said, before Eli even invited him in. "Sebastian's lawyers paid me, and I let them. I told myself I had children too. I told myself survival was not the same as betrayal. But I've been choking on it for 21 years. Eli said nothing. Wesley's eyes moved to Lucy, who was sitting at the table, clutching Anna's mug with both hands. Then he looked back at Eli. "The fire wasn't an accident," he said. "Sebastian came by that night. He and your father fought. Your father refused to sign the transfer. After Sebastian left, the solvent racks were knocked over. Thomas stayed behind to lock up. I saw the flame after I got to the corner." Lucy's face drained of color. "They killed Grandpa?" Wesley bowed his head. "I believe they let him die." Mara placed one final envelope on the table. "This was in the truck too," she said, "folded deep into the seat springs. I didn't open it. It has your name." Eli stared at it for a long time. Then he opened it carefully. Inside was a letter from Anna, not his father. Anna. The date was 8 months before she died. Eli's throat closed. "If you found this, it means your father was right," she wrote. "He showed me where he hid the evidence after the first break-in at the garage. He was scared, Eli. More scared than I'd ever seen him. He said if Sebastian ever came after us, the truck would be the last place he'd look, because men like him only search the obvious places and call it intelligence. If you're reading this, please don't be reckless. Lucy needs a father more than the truth needs another ghost. Eli pressed the paper to his mouth. Anna had known. All those years, while he was cursing the truck, patching it, threatening to sell it, she had known. Lucy leaned against him. "Mom wrote that?" He nodded. "Then what do we do?" That was the question, wasn't it? Tell the truth and risk everything, or stay alive quietly and teach your daughter that power always wins. By noon, Sebastian Voss held a press conference. He called the evidence fabricated. He called Eli unstable. He called the story a targeted extortion attempt by grieving opportunists. And then he said the cruelest thing of all, with a sympathetic face. "We should all be careful not to let children become props in adult delusions." Lucy watched that line on television. She didn't cry. She just turned the screen off and said, "He's scared of me." Eli looked at her. "Why?" "Because I saw him laugh." That was when Eli understood something. Sebastian wasn't afraid of the documents. Not only the documents. He was afraid of the image. A little girl in front of a city, seeing exactly what he was. So Eli did the one thing Sebastian didn't expect. He stopped hiding. That evening, the city council held its public redevelopment hearing for Harbor House, and half the city showed up, not for the building anymore, but for the man with the old truck. Sebastian came too, flanked by lawyers, advisors, and enough security to make him look guiltier than any accusation could. Eli walked in, holding Lucy's hand. People made space for them. Mara carried the evidence box. Wesley carried the original fire report and his signed confession. And the old truck, cleaned only enough for the blue paint to show under the dirt, was parked right outside the building, like a witness waiting to be called. When Eli was given the microphone, his hands shook. Not from fear anymore, from the weight of how many dead people seemed to be standing beside him. "My father never got a room like this," he said. "Men like Sebastian Voss made sure of that. My father built something brilliant and died being told his name didn't belong on it. My wife knew the truth and carried it quietly because she was trying to keep our daughter safe. And yesterday, this man laughed at us because we arrived in the only thing my family had left." He paused. The room was so silent, you could hear cameras focusing. "Maybe that truck looked old to him," Eli said. "To me, it looked honest." Sebastian's attorney stood. "This hearing is not the forum." Lucy pulled free from Eli's hand and walked to the microphone. Every adult in the room stiffened. She was small enough to look swallowed by the podium, but her voice came out clear. "You said old things make room for better things," she told Sebastian. "But my grandpa made your whole life, and my dad didn't sell him." The room broke. Not into chaos, into truth. People stood. Council members whispered urgently to each other. Reporters surged forward. One of Sebastian's own board members, an older man with shaking hands, rose from the second row and said, "I warned your father not to bring you into negotiations. Thomas Parker was the talent. Everyone knew it." Sebastian spun toward him. "Sit down." But now everyone had a memory, a rumor, a detail they had ignored because it was convenient. Another former employee stood. Then another. Public silence cracked all at once. Sebastian lunged for the evidence box. It was a stupid, human, panicked move. Maybe that's why it ended him. Because in trying to grab it, he knocked the cassette recorder onto the council table, and the play button jammed down again. His younger voice filled the room one more time. Don't confuse labor with legacy. No amount of legal language could survive that sentence now. Not after the laughter at the gala. Not after the searched house. Not after the child. Police moved before the tape finished. Sebastian looked around like money should still work if he just waited long enough. It didn't. As they led him out, he locked eyes with Eli and said, almost pleading now, "You think this gives you back what you lost?" Eli held Lucy closer. "No," he said, "but it stops you from stealing the rest." Sebastian Voss was arrested that night on charges that grew larger by the week: fraud, evidence tampering, witness intimidation, conspiracy tied to the original fire. Voss automotive stock collapsed, then rose again months later under emergency restructuring when the board did the one thing it should have done decades earlier. It restored Thomas Parker's name as co-founder. Not in tiny print, not hidden. On the building, on the filings, on every engine patent they could legally trace back. Eli didn't become a billionaire. That's not how real life works. He became something better, harder. He became unashamed. The courts awarded his family a settlement big enough to pay every debt, fix the house, and fund Harbor House permanently. Lucy got to keep her after-school program. Mara became its financial director. Wesley volunteered there every Saturday, repairing bikes and apologizing the only way some men know how, with his hands. And the truck? Eli restored just enough to keep it running. He kept the rust on one side of the bed. People offered crazy money for it once the story went public. He turned them all down. Some nights, after Lucy fell asleep, he'd sit behind the wheel in the driveway and rest his hand on the cracked dashboard, remembering his father's laugh, Anna's stubborn faith, and the terrible, beautiful truth that sometimes the thing the world mocks most is the very thing carrying your rescue. A year later, Harbor House reopened with a new sign over the gym: the Thomas and Anna Parker Center. Lucy cut the ribbon. Eli stood behind her, not hidden anymore, not bowed, not apologizing for the life he had survived. And parked beside the curb, washed clean under the evening light, was the old blue truck that rich people laughed at until it taught an entire city what value really looks like. Because shiny things impress the crowd, but battered things tell the truth. So tell me, if you were Eli, would you have taken Sebastian's money and protected your child in silence? Or risked everything to expose the truth?